All right, here's another case where, yes, we're in the harder portion of the section. However, get back to basics, right? Before you even read the story, try to just get a sense of what you're dealing with, and that might help you narrow your focus to the right ideas. We can clearly see that we have a bunch of equations, and some of them are weird, but at least A and B remind me a lot of y equals mx plus b. Now, they did rearrange it, right? They put the b first, and it's a minus, but it's the same idea, right? There's some sort of kind of starting point, and then a b, a slope, and an x, a variable. Now it's t. But this reminds me of y equals mx plus b, and so I can think in those terms. However, I don't really need to. Another strategy here is just to recognize that whatever these equations are, they're equations. And if I have equations, what do I want? I want points, because then I can plug points into equations. The best, easiest strategy for the SAT math is that strategy, because it doesn't require any math knowledge other than knowing what a point looks like, what an equation looks like, and how to mush them together. That's it. This is a good thing. So there is a twist here. We got to be careful, right? So we want to turn this chart into points. So we need to make sure we understand what it is we're being told and how these equations interact with the points. So P is the population, so that seems okay. There's my P. However, T is T years after 2000. So they give me the year in the chart, but that's not the value of T, right? Because 2,000 years after the year 2000 is the year 4000. We're clearly not talking about that. So we're really plugging in values for T of 0 and 10, right? The year 2000 is 0 years after the year 2000, because it is the year 2000. And then 2010 is 10 years after 2000. So the place to start is probably the y-intercept, which is going to be right here, because that's where t is equal to 0. However, for the first two choices at least, if we plug in 0, it's just going to cross out the 1.6 and 16t and leave us with 862, which is kind of what we want, but that doesn't get rid of all of the answer choices. It does, however, get rid of C and D. I'm not going to do it for both. Let me just do it for D. 862 minus 1.6 times 0 minus 2,000. All right, we're plugging in 0. So that's 862 minus 1.6 times negative 2,000. Well, I don't even need to do it. I just know that 862, this is going to make these two negatives into a positive, plus a big number is going to not be 862. So even without a calculator, I very quickly know that C and D just don't make sense. They're going to produce a very different value than what I'm looking for. So those are gone. And that's the twist, right? Because if we didn't see that T was 0 and not that T was 2000, then we would have picked these. So this is why we can't just jump into it, especially when we're in the harder portion of the test. We've got to, make sure we're not falling for something. It's an easy thing to fix and to account for, but it's also an easy thing to miss. And so the simple thing is just read carefully and pay attention, and hopefully you'll catch it. But now for the last piece here is we did this point. Let's do the 2010 point. That's 10, 846. So let me zoom down here, and let's plug it into both. So 846 is y. 862 minus 1.6 times 10. So 1.6 times 10 is 16. So 862 minus 16. I think it's 846, but why not use the calculator just to make sure? 862 minus 16 is 846. So there we go. This is how we know that our point works in our equation, as we get a number equal to itself, right? Okay. Let's do B, though. Let's try it out. Just make sure. It's the same thing. We got 846 is equal to 862 minus 16 times 10. So this I can tell right away is going to be wrong, because 16 times 10 is 160. That's way too big to be subtracting to get 846. So there we go. A is the answer. And it really didn't involve that much of a deep understanding of the actual story. We just used the fact that there are equations and points to get it. Now, I will say that B is indeed a trap answer. I mean, they're all kind of trap answers if we think about it, because the first trap we could fall for is misunderstanding what T means and plugging in the year instead of 0 and 10. But notice also that what's the difference between these two choices, or these two numbers, right? 862 minus 846 is 16. And we're used to that then being the slope, right? The change is the slope, and 16 is sitting right there in that M position. So it feels like a change. It looks like a change. But we have to remember that a slope is a change per year, or per X, per T in this case. So that's not, we're not going, from 0 to 1, we're going from 0 to 10. So the slope is going to be spread out over those 10 years, right? So if we did the more classic change in Y over change in X, we would have 862 minus 846 over 0 minus 10, which is 16 over negative 10, which is, do it in your calculator, negative 1.6, which is the number that we saw as the slope in the correct answer. So it all fits together. And there's lots of ways to understand what's going on, but I'm always thinking the least mathematical way, the least algebraic way to answer a question is probably the best, because numbers don't lie, and our brain is much better at understanding numbers. So I stayed away from y equals mx plus b here because I thought that plugging the points in would just be safer. I don't need to understand what's happening. The calculator does the understanding for me. And I think that that's a good mentality to have. You should understand all the other stuff, but you should always try not to have to. Do it the easy way. Be lazy and just try to use numbers as much as you can. I think in the long run, you'll make fewer careless mistakes and get a better score.